Yo, yo, what is going on today?
What is up, Waf? How's it going, sir? Happy Monday. Another weekend in the markets survived. We've made it to BossDawgs.
Yeah, another week. We go from down to being down low to up high to kind of like somewhere in between right now, I would say. Recovered about 8% on the Bitcoin price, hovering a little bit under 60K. But it's funny, like last week, we kind of spoke more about the macro and didn't get into anything. But underlying the Bitcoin recovery, we've had, I want to say, a pretty nice recovery on runes and ordinals this past week.
Yeah, absolutely. From their absolute lows, things have popped a good amount. And as always, those runes and ordinals plays are definitely levered exposure to Bitcoin for the most part. Doesn't all move in coordination all the time. But there's definitely some names that have been recovering nicely. We've seen that across the ecosystem, so not just in Bitcoin. We've seen with some names like DeGods as well, a little bit of a recovery. So definitely some optimism in the market. Still, to your point, we're just fluttering around that 60K mark, and that's kind of been the theme of the year, right? Just hovering around 60K, sometimes surging up to 70K, chilling there, but it really likes to hang out around those nice whole numbers. So definitely a lot of chop. I think a lot of my sentiment is similar to last week's episode where we said just wait for your good opportunities, wait for your buy zones. Anything could really happen here. Don't have too much conviction, higher or lower. So kind of just chilling, but definitely some good price action on some collections here for us to get into.
Last week we dipped to 49, and we kind of recovered a little bit off of some information earlier on in that day. And then we mentioned, like, I wouldn't be surprised if Bitcoin was over 60K when we did this show. And you know what? For a while, it actually was, right? It was probably 61, 62, and now we're back down a little bit. And it's just the normal chop still. I think we're still in the summertime, right? People are not really, in the market as much right now. And we're just kind of like biding our time, waiting for the catalyst to hit. But at least it looks like I want to say that the bottom is kind of in. I could feel pretty confident in saying that. I don't think we're going to see Bitcoin dip again below 50. I think that was the shakeout with that panic over the yen carry trade unwinding, but it looks like now they promised not to raise rates anymore. So that trade is still going to remain intact. And I think it seems like the bull season is still on, and we just have to get to Q4 to really start seeing the fireworks happening.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, every year the Santa Claus rally comes in some pretty substantial fashion. Obviously, under every year is a bit of a hyperbole. It doesn't happen every single year, but more often than not, that seasonality plays a major part. And we'll see what happens this month on Mopex, just as some options expire, and see how that might carry the market. In addition to runes and ordinals, the tech sector as a whole rebounded very nicely. And we've seen some correlation throughout the year of crypto moving in tandem with companies like Nvidia, just some big AI names and computer chip names that have really, just kept a lot of liquidity in the markets. There's definitely some fear with Warren Buffett and some other seasoned traders selling, calling that as a top signal. But yeah, definitely appreciate the call out, WAF, on Bitcoin 50K. I think that was really just the perfect storm of a lot of headlines. In summation, you had the yen carry trade where the interest rates increased. You had Kamala Harris catching up in the polls. As always, just the note that we're an apolitical show here. But definitely Trump has a lot of pro crypto stance that bolsters the market pretty decently. So him falling behind in the polls the same time as the yen carry trade with interest rates rising made that not as appealing to some investors. So some sell-offs happening there. And then you had some major names selling off huge clips of their tech portfolios at the same time. So all of that, as well as some Middle East war threats, kind of culminated into a huge sell-off about a week and a half ago. And now we're back. A lot of that stuff didn't really pan out. It seems like the war threats, they're still looming. I think that's going to be a large narrative for this year into next year and whoever knows how long after. But there really wasn't that immediate conflict resolution that was hyped up over that past weekend. The markets really rebounded decently well from that. They're still not back to their previous highs. So, we'll see if they can make a higher high here. I definitely think a higher high would really be a big turning point for a lot of people to become bullish once again, just put more chips on the table. Because right now, if you zoom out in the 3-month charts, we're sort of in either a consolidation period or the start of a trend reversal. And that's the thing with charts, it really just depends on what your time frame is. But if we can maintain and create a higher high, then I'm totally with you there, Waf. I think the tides could be turning. It's just a matter of getting that confirmation. This is like the first step towards it. So let's just see what the follow through looks like in coming days and weeks here.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably one of the longest consolidation periods post halving of all time. And it's just like keeping a beach ball underwater. And, the longer you keep it down, like the bigger it's going to shoot up. So I am expecting everything to really recover. I mean, you kind of forget how that bullish feeling feels after a while when it hasn't been around for a while. But I think it's gonna get crazy, and it's really gonna get crazy in the rune space and the ordinal space. And like just to switch back to or flip to the micro, I want to say, and I'm sure you've probably noticed this too. Man, RSIC, they couple of tweets and look how bullish the price action is now on both the RSIC rune and also on the RSIC ordinal. Like RSIC rune is up basically 100% this week. I think their ordinal is up like 200%. So just a couple of tweets from the X account, and all of a sudden, you could double your money, triple your money just from an account becoming active again. It's crazy.
It's honestly nuts, Swap. And I mean, we've talked about it before. The risk reward for some of these runes projects is next to none in the space right now. It's really early NFT vibes where a project founder or just a snapshot tweet could send floors doubling overnight. And exactly to your point, RSIC was beaten down pretty bad. We've talked about it in previous episodes. They are the poster child of a pre-rune launch. They did everything correctly. They've really just been building in silence. So, the fact that they sold off in the midst of some panic makes sense. But yeah, all it really took was a couple of tweets, and now they're back. It's not to their all-time highs. They're still floating around 70 million market cap. So it still is a little bit lower than when Bitcoin was at that 70K mark, but it is to be expected. And, as we've talked before, like you're saying with this analogy of a beach ball underwater, the pack leaders just perform so well when the bull market comes. I think the most recent example we had of something like that was $1 Billion Cat. It was holding up beautifully during a pullback. We got a rotation into runes that hit a high of about 55 million market cap. So now RSIC, it's not even back to its all-time high. If Bitcoin can reclaim that 70K and go higher, I'm sure something like RSIC would be a really nice pack leader and one to be looking at.
I mean, honestly, RSIC, even with this move, it's 4x below its all-time high. So that's a 4x move just to get back to its all-time high, and I expect that to happen. And you have sort of like these 4 runes kind of leading the pack with the recovery. It's Dog Go to the Moon, it's RSIC, it's $1 Billion Cat, and also to probably a lesser extent, it's Pups World Peace. So those are like the 4 runes, and they're the top 4 that I am actually the most comfortable with. And I think they're all still small anyway, like besides Dog Go to the Moon. Dog Go to the Moon is at $300 million market cap, which is like 3x off its lows, right? So it has room to run. It made that run to $1 billion early on in late April. And RSIC, again, like it's 4x off its high. $1 Billion Cat is probably 4x off its high as well. So there's just a lot of room to run on these runes, and these are the kind of like the 4 most popular runes, the ones that receive the most volume, day in, day out. So I think that's kind of like where you need to be if you want to be in runes. You could definitely pick some lower micro cap, but at the end of the day, like these are all kind of like micros to me anyway. So and they feel a little bit safer, for whatever that's worth. That you don't even have to mess with anything else. You could just mess with sort of like these top 4.
Yeah, great shout outs there, Waf. And I mean, I definitely do want to add into mixed Satoshi. That's back to a $10 million market cap. Definitely rebounded a little bit, but I mean, that's still just like a 12th of what its all-time high was. And, again, it's really just zooming out and thinking about what some of these rune names might become in the future. The thesis is always just that two different theses, whatever. I'm just rambling here. Two different plans are kind of playing out. You have some that are building infrastructure, so stuff like Zbit, Blue Bitcoin. Certainly with RSIC, there's definitely a lot of speculation that they're going to be building some ecosystem. Even with something like Dog Go to the Moon, there's some thought that Leonidas might tie it all together. But for a lot of these, they are just going to be the meme coins of Bitcoin, which makes sense, right? Like stuff like Pepe, stuff like WIF, where there's really been no intrinsic value. It's really just a big meme. The memes are worth billions of dollars. So on Bitcoin, that just being a fraction of the value, you have some of these namesakes like Satoshi, founder of Bitcoin, at a $10 million market cap. You expand it into the future and think, hey, people are going to come for these meme coins on Bitcoin, then, sky's the limit. So 100% to your point, calling stuff like Doggo to the Moon, RSIC, microcaps, at their valuations right now, 100%. They have so much room to run, especially when you just account for how large Bitcoin's market cap is compared to all these other blockchains. There could definitely be some crazy stuff in the long term. So great shout on those names as always. And it's just a slow trade. That's sort of been a staple of Bitcoin, I would say. With ordinals, there was a few periods of excitement where things traded very quickly. But even then, I would say it was always a lot slower than Ethereum and Solana. So even though week to week with some of these episodes, we might just be reporting on similar names and similar topics, this is kind of what it's about. It's just letting that pot simmer and letting those flavors marinate. And, at some point, there's going to be a beautiful final product there. We're just in the intermediary time right now.
And I think it's perfectly aligning with some of the protocols that builders are building right now, and they're very close to launch, right? So you've got fractal Bitcoin, where it's going to make trading BRC20s and runes, I guess, a lot easier, a lot smoother, a lot quicker. So like that testnet, I believe, is already out, and people are already messing with like the faucet and messing around with that. And then what I actually think is even going to be bigger than fractal Bitcoin, which, everyone is talking about fractal Bitcoin, but TAP protocol is on the verge of release, and that's going to be DeFi on layer 1. And I think once that hits, then, runes really is going to take off. So I just think like we got builders building, we got prices recovering. This could be like the perfect storm for Q4.
Oh, that's a great call there, Waf. And, I don't remember off the top of my head the builder of Track and Tap, but he's a tried and true builder, man. I remember just when ordinals were really heating up, he was there day in, day out, just building some infrastructure. Did we ever get that airdrop yet? Do you remember there was supposed to be an airdrop for Track holders way back when? I think there was a snapshot. Do you know if that ever happened?
I believe it was like 2 snapshots. I don't think the actual airdrop happened, but I could be wrong. But that's Benny the dev, who's
that's right,
kind of in charge of all of that stuff.
That's awesome. Yeah. Benny the dev, huge builder in the space, very notable name. So definitely have some faith in him. And I mean, to your point, it's funny, like we definitely have some recurring themes on BossDawgs, but infrastructure is a big one. I mean, just think about the ease of use. If you go onto Dex Screener and you want to buy any Solana coin or Photon or whatever marketplace you use to trade, right? You can say, I want to buy $50 of that meme coin. It's so convenient versus still we're kind of in a position where you can split your runes, but you have to do multiple transactions. You can buy smaller quantities. For a lot of these BRC20s and a lot of these rune names, we're still stuck at sort of like, okay, here's the bundle of runes that's available for you to buy. So once we get to a point where the average person can just come in and say, this is exactly how much I want to spend, they don't have to really worry about all that friction, and there's just a pool of liquidity that exists, it's really going to be helpful for the ecosystem as a whole. We saw a lot of that happen even with just Blur implementation a few years ago. Obviously, that's a contested topic as to did Blur save NFTs or destroy NFTs. Whatever the opinions are, liquidity definitely adds to ease of use, and it will make it a lot easier for people to speculate into their favorite runes in ordinal projects. So definitely something I'm looking forward to see progression on.
Yeah, we know liquidity is king too, right? So get in before the liquidity hits is definitely a nice way of playing things here.
Absolutely. Well said. But yeah, wow, besides the names you already listed, are there any rune projects? Are there any ordinal projects that are really standing out to you? Anything you've been buying? I've honestly been in very big touch grass mode. I've been tempted to nibble on a few things, but haven't quite yet. But I'm just curious if you've been making moves or still just plotting and letting it take course.
Yeah, I mean, from a personal standpoint, I just been doing the lending through Liquidium and been lending on puppets. Um, so that's that. And then as far as like accumulating, I think I've just had my positions already, so I'm just sitting on them. But there is an upcoming project I am interested in, and I just dropped the inscription. This is for um and maybe I'm saying this wrong. Inscripedia, which is basically it's gonna be like books on Bitcoin, um, and this is Jern's project. He usually writes sort of like a daily ordinal thread each day, goes through like the daily news of the day in the Bitcoin world, and he kind of mentions floor prices of notable like ordinal collections, and then as well as prices on runes. So this is his project. Um, it's going to be like a book format. If you click on that link that I sent, that ord link on that I dropped in VC chat, you can see that like you can kind of like open the book and then like the pages flip. And like the first book is going to be on Casey Rodermer. It's going to be the first drop. And I was speaking to him yesterday, and he gave me some detail, so I'll share a little bit of alpha with the group here. So the first drop is going to be pretty much like a 3K collection, and you know, each book there's going to be like rarities associated with the book. So I don't know if anybody's familiar with VV back in the day. When you like bought a VV comic book, there would be like a legendary book, an epic, a rare, a common, uncommon. So it's going to be like a similar setup for the books. I think the mint price is going to be like hovering around $40. So it's going to be like 0.00069, something like that. And he's going to have like a launch pad on books. You can use the launch pad to drop your own books on Bitcoin. There's going to be like a drop like every 4 to 6 weeks to kind of keep people coming back for more stuff. So a new narrative is a new narrative books, and I think I'm not 100% sure how it's going to play out, but I'm always interested in like any new narrative and like being like the first in something. And this is now like sort of like the first I'm going to call it like book meta or book protocol on Bitcoin.
Yeah, great shout there, Waf. It's really funny because I was talking to some friends last week about how I saw this Twitter thread the other day about how they think PDFs are going to be the next big trend in Web3. And I'm personally not fully sold on that narrative, but I love your point about being early to new trends. And that's just something that it's worth the risk reward on, because all it takes is this collection to sell out, and then suddenly we're in a new book meta. And if we're in the book meta and this is the first one to come out, then the floors could get a little pumpy. Hard to say in this environment just where the ceiling's going to be. I wouldn't expect any blow off tops or anything crazy, right? Like I wouldn't expect with the 0.00069 mint for these to go up to like 0.1, but definitely with a cheap mint. Appreciate the alpha as always. Definitely, once again, guys, throw WAF some blesses in the chat for hooking it up for us and just being able to make these relationships with these founders. It's so awesome. But yeah, I mean, it makes sense from a use case perspective. It's really cool that we have information on chain. Certainly in the history of our society, books have had some iconic moments. There's been controversial books that have been banned from the collections across, different intersections, be it schools, libraries, etc. Just books that are super notable in the public populace. So the fact that we now have information in a book form that, I mean, just think of the possibilities, right? It could be trading strategies. It could be just daily recaps. It could be election news. Owning a piece of history literally captured through books, the narrative makes sense. I personally am not super sold on it because I just think there's so many books that like it's not necessary to have it on chain. Like you could get a PDF pretty easily elsewhere. But I do think for this collection in particular, and just for that new narrative that might emerge out of this and might swing us into a new meta, it's definitely worth going to mint that. I think getting off a cheap mint and having an upside there makes it well worth it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it's going to be like a 3 per mint wallet maximum. And really, what he's going for is like affordability and accessibility. So even if you don't even buy the book, you can go over to the website and read the book. So anything that drops can still be readable without ownership. So I think it's a cool concept. On chain, on chain, it's forever. Ownership, collectability with the rarities, right? Because people love chasing rare stuff, right? So I think you still have that. Cool. It's just a cool concept, I think. And again, it's the first of its kind, and it's kind of like a low risk, high reward type of bet, and we always like those asymmetric bets in this space.
Dude, absolutely. So really appreciate the shout there, Waf. In terms of any pre-existing collections, anything that's been trickling into your buy zone, I definitely had to look away for part of it because I was just like, honestly, at this point, I got my Natcat bags, I got my Rune bags, I got my raw Bitcoin there. Definitely just been buying Bitcoin if it drops below. I was definitely buying it sub 55K. I'm kind of just waiting for things to stabilize. But if it goes back to that 50K low, for sure going to get back up in there. But yeah, other than that, just kind of been chilling on my end. Been super tempted by Wizard. I always shout it out. I'm sure you saw that after like 3 months of no news, there was finally an announcement in the Wizard channel. That was the big update, basically just saying, hey, Mavensbot is working on it. We're going to do it when the time is right for the migration. They sort of asked what they want people to have the ticker symbol for Magic Internet Money be. So people in the chat are discussing MIM versus Wizard versus Magic Internet Money. So just some discussion there. Price briefly went up to $3 on that news. Now it's back to about $1.70. So price is definitely down on Wizard, but still one to look to accumulate, at least personally. But that's kind of it on my end, Waf. Anything else you've been trading or looking into?
Well, a couple of weeks ago, I think I mentioned to you that I was chatting with EV, the founder of Natcats, and now he's officially kind of formalized and announced the block drop. So pretty much if you own a Natcat, you'll be eligible for what is called a block drop, which is kind of similar to, I don't want to call it an airdrop. It's more like a claim. So whatever that block number is, you'll be eligible to go claim this block drop. In this case, it's another one of his collections. It's going to be an art collection. You don't have to claim it if you have a Natcat. You could let it sit there. So what's going to happen in the future is like your Natcat could accumulate several of these block drops, and you'll be able to like track and monitor and manage like what Natcats have like claimed their block drops, which ones haven't, and like maybe that's going to assign additional value to your Natcats moving forward. And it doesn't have to be just like, the founder who created it to create a block drop on behalf of Natcats. Like pretty much any dev that wants to do something like that can code it and do it. And this will apply for like Natcats that haven't even come out yet. So if 10 years from now, the bits in the element field are aligned, and now we have more Natcats being created and minted, whatever block drop that was given to Natcats, like those future Natcats will also be eligible to claim them as well. So it's something that's being built like through DMT, the digital matter theory on Bitcoin, that basically will live pretty much forever past us, past founders, past developers, and will just kind of like be on the Bitcoin chain forever. So he's got that coming out, which I've been kind of interested in seeing. I saw he was on a couple of spaces talking about it. So I think like things are moving ahead in the DMT world. I guess we've been like kind of in a bear market in ordinals and runes and stuff, and people just kind of had their head down in building, and hopefully the market's going to turn around as like these new things are these devs fully finish their products, and it's a good time to be in the market and pay attention.
Yeah, absolutely, Waf. Great shout there. Again, more alpha from your lips to our ears today. So definitely appreciate that. But it's nice to see, EV continuing to build. I know when we spoke to him last, he really just noted that he was a builder, but it's cool to see him tie that into Natcats. Natcats at the very least are not really spiraling out under control. They really have maintained that 0.01. I think they're at like 0.013 right now. So, they definitely are still down from their all-time highs, as are most Ordinals projects, but they are still maintaining that low a lot better than other projects. And we've mentioned before, what differentiates Natcats from a lot of other projects is that whales claim so many of them at mint, and we were just dealing with a lot of whales churning through hundreds of them. So I know the holder count is still not the best, but just knowing that those main wallets are starting to decrease their supplies a little bit, and then having these block drops, which offer a pretty interesting mechanic, as you just went through, there definitely seems to be some hope on them. I still personally love them. I just think they have such a cool feel. They're not really in the spotlight as much anymore. Still see a pretty big presence for them on Twitter, but they're not really in the top 10 these days in terms of projects. But other than that, still pretty interesting. I guess just some other projects to shed some light on. We still see Puppets and Node Monkeys really holding down the fort in just terms of popularity on the charts. Node Monkeys really a big fall from grace. They're at 0.11. Which, well below buy zones that I've had previously. Still not fully sure when to buy. I do think Ordinals at some point are going to be a great buying opportunity. Puppets at 0.079, really down there in the charts. Surprisingly, or not surprisingly, but, props to Trevor. He's done a great job of rallying Pizza Ninjas. I know they have a companion collection coming out pretty soon. Those are holding super well at 0.135. I also want to shout out Based Angels. That's just another Remilio or Milady, derivative project that did super well. I know they have an airtight community, so those are almost back up to 0.01. And definitely, as always, Quantum Cats holding firmer than pretty much any other project here. Those are just really a buy at certain spots below 0.25. They're back up to almost 0.28. I mean, just the fact that we have no idea when Taproot Wizards are going to come out, but just that promise in the future has caused the floor to hold so tight on those. You got to shout those out. So those are just a quick overview of some Ordinal projects I want to touch base on. Not sure if you have any commentary on where any of those are, WAF price-wise, if any of them are a buy or close to a buy in your book, but pretty interesting just monitoring sort of the price action over the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think Node Monkeys and Puppets are still a little beat up. These prices are really low. I do like them both at this price. But you did mention ninjas. I gotta say, I'm thoroughly impressed with the Pizza Ninja price action. 0.135 floor. I think we were like a 0.07 or 0.08, like maybe a week ago. And I know like someone swept like 7, so there's not really that many for sale. And if you go and look at what's listed, Pizza Ninjas could get to 0.2 really quick. And I think Trevor, he does so much in this space. He's probably like, he's probably even underrated. Despite everything he does in this space, he's probably underrated. And now I know he's dropped some like Ninjas program for people who want to, I guess, elevate their social media profile and kind of get into hosting spaces and doing shows and doing that kind of thing. So he's hosting some kind of boot camp for that. I think there was like a spaces recorded, basically focusing on that. So I just think the Ninja price action is unbelievable. You got to remember there's only a supply of, I want to say 1,500 if I'm not mistaken. So it's a really, I want to say desirable low collection. The art's great. The Git book on ninjas is great. I just feel like he's so underrated. It's unbelievable. And this Pizza Ninja collection has really impressed me.
Yeah, I mean, credit where credit's due, man. I definitely regret selling my Pizza Ninja at some points. It's just held up tremendously well as opposed to other projects. And it just shows the mark of strength. Even if it's down slightly from its high, it's really getting pretty close to it. They've had such notable presence at the Bitcoin conference a couple of weeks ago. They continue to build. They continue to make partnerships. They have a ton of people building. I mean, shout out to To, man. He's really is a great builder. The artwork looks clean. It's right in line with what people like on Bitcoin. And the supply is just the right size. So they definitely continue to deliver. I know a few months ago, they sort of had an airdrop or their first initial one of like a pizza rune. I wasn't super thrilled with that and thought we'd see a lot more of those little drops coming out. But, just a little bit of alpha. MVHQ is going to be doing a mission with Pizza Pets coming up in the future. So definitely get excited for that. Hope that's okay to drop that alpha. But yeah, I mean, it just looks great. Everything that they're working on and everything that they've been building. So, shouts out to Pizza Ninjas. They're really just one to look at. So definitely excited to see how their price action comes through, especially if we enter the bull market again. I'm sure those will do pretty nicely.
Yeah, what I think is his greatest strength is that he's kind of has an even keel and kind of just goes about his business regardless of market conditions and floor price. It doesn't really factor in the equation of like his brand, right? He just kind of does what he does, and he's not let the floor price kind of take care of itself. Then I want to say like, another founder that seems to have, I want to say, rejuvenated his base is the Gods, right? Like, did you see what he did with the Gods, by the way, this week?
Dude, I sure did. I'm honestly surprised that the price action went up in response to it, but I mean, all power to him.
I mean, hey, he found a way to shake it up and like generate some buzz and excitement. But see, like that, can that last is the question, right? I did notice like even the Gods on Bitcoin are up like 100% too. I mean, I think they went from like 0.06 to, I want to say maybe it's 0.11. I'm not even sure what the price is right now. But those things were over 1 Bitcoin at one point back in the day. So like those are still beat down severely. Oh, look, it's actually 0.15. So that thing is still moving up. It's up 205% like in the past week. So that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it goes to show you that there's always room for some sympathy plays like that. Anyone who's glued into the Gods, I personally was out and just catching the headlines. But if you were right there and you saw the trade happen, there was almost a 3x opportunity at a large scale there. We're not talking about small potatoes. 0.06 to 0.15 is a really nice profit for a few $1,000s there. So even during these bear times, that's sometimes the best time to get a nice swing trade going on. So definitely love, Waf, just how tuned into all these projects that you are. And I mean, you've had some amazing calls during the bull market, and I'm looking forward to stuff like these books coming out, maybe some Pizza Ninjas, maybe just getting node monkeys or puppets at the right price point. I mean, this is where it really starts to get interesting because it does get pretty appealing for the lower market cap stuff, just for more and more people to enter. I mean, think about how many people were FOMOing into puppets at like 0.4, and now they're at 0.08. If that gets to a lower price of like 0.05 or something, you might start to just see some serious sweeps that double the floor overnight. And then if it gets to an environment where these projects are just consistently going up 100% overnight, some people start making a few $1,000s instantly. And that's when the narrative of ordinals are back, runes are back, can really just launch a lot of these projects through the stratosphere. So definitely excited about that.
Yeah, definitely keep your eye out because like what I like to do, I go on Magic Eden. I'll look at the 1 day floor. I'll look at the volume. I'll look at the sales, and then I'll just kind of like scroll through the different time frames. So I'll look at it at 7 days, at 6 hours, just to see like if I could catch something that's potentially like being low key accumulated or low key swept. And of course, I still use Ord Watchers for like Magic Eden momentum on collections. They track it there, and then they also track like runes momentum like on a 10-minute or on a 1 hour. So I think still use those tools, and you'll be able to catch something early. I mean, there's a lot of green out there, so it's not all like doom and gloom. I mean, there's definitely opportunities there. There's a lot of green on the 1 day. There's a lot of green on the 7 day right now.
Absolutely. And one name that is not green, it's come full circle, Laugh. We are finally printing money with the hamster short. I'm contractually obligated through my MVHQ contract to mention it once an episode. I'm really not, guys. This is just my personal short report. You've seen it from its inception a couple months ago. But Hamster finally getting the sell off and the beat down, not to take a hard pivot away from Ordinals there, but just wanted to circle back because I'm fist pumping here, just enjoying the ride down. But just as a shout to people who've been playing along at home, Hamster finally selling off, cracking to about 0.17 from a high of 0.26. So that's been a fun one to monitor.
That's funny. You called it, man. You've been waiting for that one to break down. But the one I'm looking for to break up, which also has had an awesome recovery, and we've always talked about this, Rune, is Billion Dollar Cat. I mean, Billion Dollar Cat's been very resilient, like despite this bear market. It's holding up pretty well. The volume's still pretty good. It's sitting at 30 sats. It's like I think it's still a steal at 30 sats right now.
Oh, sorry about that. Got my mute button jammed there. First of all, dude, great just co-hosting and fielding that. I loved it. I had my selfish Hamster plug. You're immediately just like, and here's one breaking up. That was just great co-hosting there, dude. I love the rhythm that we've gotten into with the show. But yeah, man, great shout on Billion Dollar Cat. And I'm going to double down on that with you because a few weeks ago, I shouted out, hey, I'm not sure how I feel about Billion Dollar Cat because on Solana, we have Billy. And with Billy, it's sort of taking over that ticker symbol. And it's really gotten shaken out to a large extent. I'm not saying it's fully gone, but projects like Nero coming out and really becoming the darling of Solana and Ethereum, at least for that week period, sort of weakened the stance. And this is shifting back from the micro to the macro. But over on Solana, there's a big balancing act of these projects. And, we've talked a lot this year over attention spans being very fragmented this year in particular, right? There's just so many coins that have been bidded up. And now some of them are going to have to figure out if they're going to be stables for the coming months as we, deal with this sort of bear market chop. But yeah, Billy has really not been as prevalent. It was super popular around the same time the Billion Dollar Cat was launching, and then we saw Billion Dollar Cat start to cool off. I do think that if Billy on Solana continues to cool and just not as many people are talking and posting about it, it leaves this awesome window for Billion Dollar Cat to continue to post and continue to gain relevance. And, same shout out that we gave Pizza Ninjas, a lot of relevance at the Bitcoin conference. Billion Dollar Cat was there as well. A lot of people wearing the Billion Dollar Cat masks still seems to be a pretty big part of the culture, at least so far in Bitcoin and Ordinals. So big props to them because they really just made something super memeable, really good plug and play template. And the community over there, a bunch of builders as well. So great shout on that, WAF. I think the fact that they're still holding almost $20 million market cap, even with the sell-off, it's a pretty good price point. It's one that I would continue to add on dips here. Definitely an eye that I'm naming to get another entry in on.
And, to your point about, the Billy ticker for Solana, like just kind of overtaking it and overwhelming it, I think, and I could be wrong on this, but I don't think I am. I'm pretty sure they switched their ticker now to BDC and they're not using Billy anymore. So I think they recognize that and they're using BDC to kind of like differentiate themselves from the Solana Billy.
Oh, that's tremendous, dude. I didn't even realize, honestly. I just see the full name there. But if they're doing BDC, that's really great. I mean, I think that's got a nice flow to it. Just 3 letters, nice and easy. Got a nice ring to it too, BDC. So yeah, I love it, dude. I think that's a great play. It was one of my favorite memes. I was posting about it way back at like 5 million. You were in off mint, and I just, listened to you talk about it, did some digging and said, yep, this is definitely the truth. So looking forward to getting some more exposure on that. I'm happy. I had some laptop troubles over the past week or so, but I'm back to back here. We're good to go. Got my wallets all set up. So now I'm ready to deploy some capital. So I'm definitely going to look for it. Again, I still think we're firmly in a chop zone. So this is sort of a period where I'm not rushing to buy. I do think when there's a lot of panic in the streets, you do sort of see people sell the pops. So today was just pretty choppy again. We saw crypto sell off a little bit, stabilize a little bit, up a little bit on the day. But I'm still waiting for either a confirmation forward where, hey, looks like we're getting a lot of buy pressure, or some more selling off to buy a name like that. But it's definitely one I'm going to be looking at. And I think when the time comes, it's going to be a good time to deploy some capital.
I'm with you there. I'm just pretty much going to maintain like being even keeled. I'm not getting like too excited. I'm not getting too down. Bags that I hold that I feel comfortable with, I'm not necessarily adding. I'm just holding. But I do like this one. Like it's one of the four that I really like. It's held up pretty good. And then we spoke about last week, after the sell off, like look for those coins, look for those tokens that bounce back hard after like those big dips in prices. And we were talking at the time about Solana, right? Because Solana recovered really well. But now, if you look at runes for the past 7 days, like which runes recovered like the best? It was Arsic, it was Billion Dollar Cat, probably leading the way with like the biggest recoveries in terms of percentage. And Dog of the Moon is there too, not as big because it's a bigger market cap, but those recovered really well. Pups is like I think Pups is a little bit trickier in that there's not much really available for sale, and that floor price can fluctuate like 30-40% with like one sweep. So that Pups World Peace price I think is it's probably low because again it's just not that much supply out there to buy.
Yeah, and there's really nice trades you can make on stuff like that. I mean, you got to acknowledge that runes in general, as well as ordinals, are super low volume compared to just volume we've seen in crypto before. I mean, that's something that I did a lot with Wizard. There would be times where the floor on Wizard would be like 250, and then someone would list a bundle of Wizard for like $2. And obviously, the price could go lower, but when you just see a large gap in the floor, a lot of times it's worth just taking a feeler. I mean, even like a 10% flip is a nice gain. So if you see mispriced assets, if you just get familiar with sort of the price fluctuations of a collection, you see someone just needs the liquidity, a lot of times you can just play market maker, trade a few different times, and it's definitely a good strategy. Like we talked about, there's some opportunities in bear markets. So if you're just glued and familiar with a lot of these prices on a collection of your choosing, a lot of good way to make some cash in the interim.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, look at Arsic. Just if you bought him like when it was beat down low and a couple of tweets, and now it's way up. I mean, like Arsic, the Meta Protocol Ordinal is at 0.019. And it always seemed to be like kind of like right there with Runestones. Runestones is now um less than more than half less than the price of R6. So maybe Runestone at 0.0087 is now like approaching a really good entry price. Like it's below that 001 or that 01 that we always spoke about. Could be a good time for Runestone still right here at this price.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there, Waf. I mean, the fact that, it's still close to that point zero one point, but the high of the collection is still 3x from where Dog Go to the Moon is right now. It definitely seems like Runestones are in a decent position. I could see them going a little bit lower just because of how big the supply is, but I think that's one that you hope you can catch someone listing, a few below the floor. There's obviously issues with like mempool sniping and stuff like that, but sats are so low. There's not as many people glued into the ordinals market as before. I think this is really where a lot of edges can be had as a trader, especially with smaller accounts. I mean, this is, just how I got started earlier in this year trading ordinals. It was just really seeing what our other MVHQ members were doing. I mean, MVHQ had it early. There was a ton of members in here. Shout out to Remy, Chelsea, Sola, other people. Sorry if I didn't shout you out, just the names that I've interacted with. Wow, of course, you and Mr. Bull. Just going into the trenches very early on and seeing this price action and getting a sense of where the deals are when other people weren't, that's where you can really start to build that bankroll, especially on a smaller scale. This is the perfect place to do it. If you're trading with below zero point 0.1 Bitcoin, this is a really good opportunity for you to get into the weeds. And it's going to be a little bit slower pace because there's not as much volume. But if you just say, hey, I'm waiting for that nice point in time, you let the market come to you, you get a rare ordinal, get a mispriced rune, someone just needed some liquidity, you can really start to do some damage. And I mean, it's remarkable how many trades you can chain together if you're just patient and wait for some good entries.
Yeah, patience is key, and also like counter trading that emotion, right? So, you know, buying when you see floors up 30%, 40%, 50%, short term probably not going to end well, right? But if it's down 20, 30%, maybe that's the floor you should buy and then sell it on a green day like today or something like that. So like it's kind of hard to get into that flow, but once you kind of like master that, then you'll look forward to the days when everything is down and everybody's fearful and there's a panic, because like those are the days you make money when you buy, not necessarily when you sell. You kind of make your money on your entry price, right? So I think you just got to play that game.
Yeah, well said for sure, Waf. But yeah, if there wasn't anything else on ordinals and runes, Waf, I definitely want to pivot over to Solana briefly just to recap on that, and then potentially wrap up the episode with just some trading sentiment. I've just really been doing a lot of reading over the past couple of weeks, been really immersed in trading in the zone. So I want to just share some takeaways with people listening at home, just share some nice trading mindset. I'd love to pick your brain as well, and then we can wrap up the episode. Does that sound good to you?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
All right. So both you and I were very bullish on Solana in the pullback, and dude, it worked out really nicely. Not to toot my own horn here, but I had a pretty solid gain just trading on Avo. I told you I had limit orders in $5 increments all the way down to $30 on Solana. So had exposure all the way to the sub 110 dip. Sold a couple days ago at 150, sold the entire position. I think at one point I had like 150 Solana that I scaled into, but made a really solid profit off of that. So it just went really nicely. And it just really embodies, I think, how you and I view trading a lot of the times, which is just you have to be buying as the price goes lower and have those convictions. So, it's just following the steps that we talk about in a lot of these episodes. We've identified Solana is really strong as opposed to, Bitcoin and Ethereum. Whenever there's a green day, Solana seems to be really leading the pack. We identified that a few weeks ago, had the site to say, okay, I'm going to set some limit orders, was able to scale into it, and then said, hey, this is a big green day when it popped up from like low 130s to 150. Went a little bit higher than that, but didn't get greedy, just scaled out and sold out. And just rinsed and repeated it. I set up all those limit orders again. So I'm just continually swing trading Solana. Definitely recommend for people out there who share the same conviction in Solana to just set it up exactly like that. But wanted to share that with you, Waf, and see how your Solana trading has been going.
Dude, love to hear it. Congratulations on the trade. Honestly, I've just been accumulating. Like I've been doing like sort of like daily recurring buys on like the crypto that I'm most bullish on, and I just kind of put it on set it and forget it. So like at the moment, I just pretty much just accumulating Bitcoin and Solana on a auto recurring daily buy. And I just and when we went down, I just kind of upped the amount I buy per day, and I've just left it on. So I'm just really still accumulating my Solana, and like I just want to have, I don't know, like a ton of Solana when it hits 250, 300, like once it passes its previous all-time high, I think, now you have sky's the limit. It could really take off. And I think it could really catch up to like a certain percentage of Ethereum. So like, it wouldn't surprise me if like, it might take really long from this point now. I think we're at 140 something, the price right now, to 250. But once we get to 250, like to get to 350 might be a week later. Like it could be so fast. So I just wanted to have my position before the all-time high hits.
I love it, dude. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think I'm personally foreseeing a little bit more chop this year leading into that kind of big spike. But I love the play of just averaging into it. I've honestly more so been buying Ethereum and Bitcoin, just long-term recurring buys. More so just out of convenience, just because I have more access to exchanges that offer that versus mainly trading Solana on perp. But I love the vision there, dude. I know you have a really solid long-term stance on a lot of these conviction plays. And I completely agree with you. When we saw earlier in the year, Solana went from like 60 to 100, happened kind of slowly, and then relatively once it broke 100, it was just all hell broke loose. It very quickly went up to 130. Once it broke 160, just flew to 200. So I completely agree with you, Af. I think once Solana shoots ahead, it just has so much dominance in terms of use of chain. Like it's just crazy because we've all traded lots of different types of crypto, and we've attempted to adopt so many different networks. Like we talk about, think about Canto back in the day. No shade at people who were into Canto, because I think there was some really cool projects and some awesome builders, but there was just not a lot going on that chain. And in terms of where the active users are in crypto, most of them are in Solana, just we shared the screen a few weeks ago. Most daily active users, most volume, past ETH on fees, past Bitcoin on fees. Like, it is the new kid in town, and it is eating lunch of other chains out there. So the fact that it's so prominent, but it's still pretty much half off of its all-time high, it's got amazing growth potential from there. And then as other coins continue to set their all-time high, I don't think there's any reason why Solana wouldn't be up there. I really think it's sort of the big three in crypto right now are Bitcoin, ETH, and Solana. I don't think there's too many people who are going to dispute that. So I'm super bullish on it, dude. I love the fact that you're buying that every day. That's an awesome ad.
Yeah, I want to say, like, I kind of agree with your thesis too. Like, I think the real price action happens next year, but I do think we get like sort of like the preview in Q4 of this year, right? Where where like you're gonna notice sort of like the vibe check is gonna be completely different. There's gonna be like this excitement in the air, and that's gonna be like sort of like the prelude. I think this in fourth quarter of this year, and then once we hit the new calendar year 2025, I think then forget it. It's like the banana zone that we've been waiting for is coming.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, this could be the great segue into talking about trader sentiment, because I have some interesting takeaways from trading in the zone. But what I love about a trade like Solana or Bitcoin is that even if we don't get the banana zone in 2025 and price rips, it's totally fine to be patient, right? Like, this is one of those plays that it's really just a ticking time bomb. And you don't even have to worry so much about, like, is it going to happen next week? Is it going to happen next year? Whenever crypto comes back, and we know just as traders that markets are cyclical, so we'll get another time of speculation and money flowing back into crypto. Whenever that comes, Solana has established the infrastructure to support traders and to support opportunities that will have people joining the network. So it's really just a matter of time. That's where it's one of those few crypto assets that I just feel totally comfortable buying all the way down to zero, because I don't think it's ever going to hit zero at this point, right? Like, lots of other projects, I don't have that same feeling. It's just like, okay, the market lost attention, but there's just so many people using Solana. I really do think it's very similar to ETH sub 1,000. It's just like the writing is on the walls that it's going to be very prolific and very useful for people building. So I don't see a reason not to get involved in that.
So you just came from like the trader's perspective. Like, I'll just say from the investor's perspective, the biggest mistake most investors make is not seeing through, like not letting the play see it through all the way. Like, they pull their play too early because they're impatient, and then it usually follows through according to like how they originally saw that it would play out, but they just lost conviction along the way and didn't see it through. So that's like most investors' biggest regret, is not letting something play out. And I think with a lot of these crypto coins that we're in, whether it's Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, like the play is to hold, like, regardless, right? Whether it's Q4 of this year, like these timeframes that we're putting in, they're just arbitrary and don't really matter. Long term, these things are all going up. You got to take some money off the table for real life stuff, and everybody gets that. But these things are all going up. We're like in the middle of like a S curve, F cycle on crypto, this new technology in the world. So, I just think, don't give up on your plays, and like the timing is pretty much arbitrary. The longer you can hold, then like the better off you're going to be.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there, Wap. I mean, especially if you're buying something like, I've had this happen to me personally a ton of times in crypto, or just anything I've traded, where I bought something, the price goes down maybe like 10%, and then I get spooked out. And this is where it really just ties into like establishing your appropriate risk tolerance, understanding how much are you really going to lose, and like how much are you comfortable, or how long are you comfortable waiting? Like, what's your price target? But if you're just shaken out over the first drawdown, it's fine if you have a stop loss and that was part of your plan, right? If your plan was like, this is a quick trade, if it goes down 30%, my thesis is invalidated, sell, all power to you. But if your thought is, hey, I'm going to hold Solana until it has this resurgence, there's no real reason to rush if it goes down in price. If anything, you should just be excited for it. So I love your investor's take there. I think there definitely is a big differentiation between investor and trader. Sometimes that line gets blurred a little bit because of FOMO or other reasons. But it's really important to remember, like, what is the vision going on with your trades, and just remembering, are you an investor or a trader? Because a big distinction to be made there.
Yeah, totally agree. So what else did you have? What did you have for us in terms of trading?
All right, so been reading through Trading in the Zone by Mark Douglas. Shout out to Fib for shouting that out. I read this PDF like 4 or 5 years ago. One of Lizard Capital's favorite book. I know he's read it a bunch of times, so he recommended I give it another perusal here. So I'm reading through it for the second time. But there's this really good anecdote in the book that I wanted to share because I think it's pretty indicative of where we are right now in the market. There's a ton of traders on crypto Twitter who are going to be posting about, this is the buy zone here, this is the sell zone here. And there's this feeling that we sometimes have where it's like, okay, Bitcoin reaches this price, it can't go any lower, I'm going to deploy all of my capital. And you and I have talked about this a lot. It can really be a big mistake as a trader to deploy too much capital at once. I personally really recommend scaling into positions because then you can get a better price if it arises. But in this book, they have this anecdote of a trader who is a phenomenal market analyst. So he's just really good at technical analysis and reads the market super well, but he's not a good trader in terms of taking profit and also taking losses when he needs to. And he's very stubborn, always has a conception of, this is going to be the low of the market, this is going to be the high. So he works with someone who's not as technical a trader, doesn't know as much, but has traded a lot longer than him. So in this example, the technical analyst says to this trader, hey, I've charted out the price of soybean for the day. When soybeans reach this price, that is going to be the low of the day, and the price will bounce off of this price. So they wait all day, and the soybeans eventually reach this low. And the trader says to the analyst, so you're telling me this is the low of the day? And he goes, yes, this is the low of the day. It's bound to go higher. We need to buy. So the trader, in front of the analyst, he calls up a guy and says, okay, and market sells $2 million worth of soybeans at that price. The price plummets below the analyst's target of the low of the day. And thus his paradigm was shifted forever. And I just really love this analogy. I know it's a little bit long-winded, but it really just demonstrates that price, that even with the most experienced technical analysis out there, even with thread on thread as to this is the low and this is the high of Bitcoin and the price can move, it only takes one participant to change the market. And at any point, the market is subject to so many different factors that there's really no way to encapsulate all of the different outcomes. Because at any point, anyone can sell and anyone can buy. And we've seen that this year with war threats, with election outcomes, with lots of other things. So particularly where we are right now, where Bitcoin is in a flux on a weekly basis, and it really just oscillates, pretty quickly. Just as a reminder to those listening that you shouldn't just ever go all in. You should never be blindsided to the fact that these markets can do anything at any point in time. And that to me is just a really good lesson for myself. I wanted to share it with you guys. Again, I know it's a little long-winded, but just really understanding at all points that the markets can move against you is such a freeing concept, because it allows you to say, hey, I'm responsible for my own trades and I'm open to anything happening. And once you're open to anything happening, you can really get into the nice details of what is my risk tolerance and how much do I want to wager in any given trade. So I thought that was a great anecdote that I read over the weekend, really stuck with me. I hope I did a decent job of capturing that here.
I love that story. And like my takeaway when you like try to translate that to like today's times is, everybody has like sort of like their favorite influencers that they follow on crypto Twitter, and they're looking to get their, their take when the market's bleeding and it's down bad, or like what's going to be the next move. And, if that influencer doesn't jive up with what you're looking for, you follow some other influencers and you sort of get like, you're following a bunch of influencers and you're looking for some like median, I guess, conclusion among all the influencers you're following. And in a way, you're kind of looking for confirmation bias on like what you think. And then you're kind of going to, basically followed that influencer in that case. I think my point is like don't follow anyone. Draw your own conclusions. I know it's easy to go look, for someone else's take on something when you're feeling unsure and not confident. But at the end of the day, like nobody knows what's going to happen in the market, right? I think, and to your point, like you gotta take responsibility for your own trades. I think you have to kind of draw your own conclusions as well, and not necessarily just take some influencer's word on what they think is going to happen as like the gospel.
Yeah, completely agree with you. And I mean, it's not to say that these influencers aren't great traders, because a ton of them are. Someone that's cited a lot in MVHQ is Crypto Don Alt. I know Jake's a big fan of his. I'm a huge fan of his too. I think he gets the markets right more often than he does wrong, and he does a really good job of being objective in his takes. He never comes into it as I know this is going to happen. He's very much of the mindset that if this happens, then this is indicative of this more than this. So I think he has a very leveled approach. But there's definitely influencers out there who just scream, "Well, this has to be the bottom. Deploy your capital here." And it's an easy trap to fall into sometimes when we see these crazy price movements, right? Like when Bitcoin rebounds 10% in a day, and you see everyone on the timeline saying, "Oh, bottom's in, like we're going to be ripping from here." It's super easy to say, "I need some profit. I missed out," and deploy a ton of your capital. And that's just no good for the bankroll. So, definitely agree with you, Af. Form your own opinions, use other people as guides, but, never trust anyone verbatim. And then 100% really just understand that anything can happen in these times. We could go higher, we could go lower. Just being prepared for either scenario will set you up really nicely for whatever comes next.
Yeah, agreed. Like just be prepared for each scenario. That's why dry powder is always useful, right? Like when the bottom falls out that no one was expecting, usually everyone's kind of, firmly entrenched and in and can't really take advantage. So I think, that's something probably everybody could do a better job at is like keeping even more dry powder available. Because I know it's hard to just have money just idly sitting there doing nothing, right? Even if you have a good chunk, you probably a bigger chunk is even better, right?
Completely agree, Wab. Yeah, I mean, you got to do what's best for you. Obviously, sometimes you just can't have cash on the side, but I can't tell you the amount of times in crypto that I have deployed the last of my liquidity thinking this has to be the bottom, and then it just continues to go lower. And a lot of times it eventually does rebound, but it's just like, damn, I wish I bought it lower. So just keeping that powder on the side. If you're excited to buy Solana at $100 and it goes to $80, well, you wish you had more capital right there. So it definitely is nice to spread it out. And at the end of the day, profit is profit. So even if you didn't deploy the full amount that you wanted to, and then you see the price turn around, you shouldn't really get in the habit of just like, damn, I didn't get enough profit last time, so I'm going to go all in this time. That's just waiting for something bad to happen.
Yeah, and it really ties into your exit strategy as well, like how you buy in. Because if you're, exiting out, scaling out when price is going up, then you will have that capital and freed up liquidity to get back in on the lower end as well. So, really it's kind of like full circle with how you enter, how you exit, your buy prices, your sell prices. It's all linked, it's all connected.
100%, man. Well, appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share some reading that I did over the weekend. Thought that was just really nice little story there, and definitely one that I'll be thinking about a lot. That book in general is great. Trading in the Zone by Mark Douglas. If you guys haven't read it, would recommend it. If you're not a big reader, you can look up Trading in the Zone Mark Douglas on YouTube. He has about a 4-hour lecture just breaking down the core themes in the book. Really good listen in general. I mean, it's really just mainly about emotions and psychology, but it's crazy just how much of our past in our lives really impacts us as traders. And just hearing from him what separates, the novice trader and people who fall victim to boom and bust cycles where they make some progress but then blow up an account versus the people who consistently scale up their accounts. It's really interesting stuff. So definitely worth checking out if you have not yet.
It's definitely on my must read list, I want to say, when I get a chance. So I know we're wrapping up we're a little bit over an hour. let's end it on something a little fun. Right now, Bitcoin is $59,179. When we reconvene next week, what do you got? You got higher or lower?
Oh man, wow. I'm gonna say it will be within $2,000 of where it is right now. So I think at its peak, it would be 61,000 next time we film, might be around 57,000. I think this week we'll break 55K at one point, bold prediction. But that's about it. And then that's just based on nothing other than just market feel right now. I think we got a lot of chop ahead of us. What about you?
I'm gonna go higher. I think we have CPI data this week, if I'm not mistaken. So I think if that comes in well, we should see a pump. We should see a rally. I'll go just to be different, because you said 61-ish. I'll go. I'm gonna go 63 next week when we reconvene.
Dude, I'd love to see it. That would be awesome. But yeah, I did not realize we have CPI coming in, so that's definitely going to be moving some markets one way or another. But hey, if we get some good volatility one way or another, I will say with the choppy markets this time, I just love it. I mean, I'm kind of in a position where I don't really love to short crypto other than hamster. Y'all already know. But I just love like buying on the dips and then selling the rips. So I'm really waiting. Like I would welcome a nice little retest of Bitcoin and Solana on some lower levels just so I can get some more and try to make another swing trade, because I think it's just one you can continue to do. If you're comfortable scaling in and just keep scaling in, you really just have to be patient and let the trade go into the green for you.
Honestly, it's a really great trade because even, if I look at the weekly, Bitcoin's up about 9% on the week now. But if I looked yesterday, I think it was up like 16%, like when Bitcoin was like at 61, 62. So imagine just playing that game and making a 16% gain on Bitcoin. And like, what about Solana? Solana probably moved 25% this week. So some easy trades to be had if you're you know, greedy when others are fearful and fearful when others are greedy, right?
Dude, 100%. I mean, like, to be honest, that really was never my forte. I never really traded futures like that or perps. It was something that I've been dabbling with a lot more this year, but the more I've done it, the more comfortable I've gotten. The biggest recommendation to anyone listening who wants to try it is, one, I would just really choose a security you are comfortable with. I watch the price action of Solana, Bitcoin, and ETH every single day. So it's something that I feel like I would know this is a good sale pretty much. Like, hey, this is a low price of Solana. But the other thing I would recommend is just not leveraging yourself to a point where you can get wiped out very quickly. So I made that mistake when I first started trading perps, as I was, just screwing around with a small account. But it was like, cool, if Solana goes down $3, I get liquidated. And sure enough, got liquidated on that attempt. So at this point, it's just like, okay, I'm trading with leverage, but Solana is not going to liquidate me unless it goes to zero. So I'm not really worried about that. So just setting up the trade that way, it's just nice of like, cool, I just kick back and wait for Solana to be green and then I sell and then do it all over again. So I mean, obviously there's stuff that can go wrong. You can end up down a lot on the position and have a ton of Solana that's not, at a great cost average basis. But if you're willing to just scale in more and more as you go down and you don't get liquidated, it has been working pretty well. So definitely throwing that out to anyone listening at home. If you're looking for some trades to do in the meantime while the market's slow, definitely one to start playing around with.
Yeah, I mean, too much leverage is like way too risky. Put some stop losses in because, you could be sleeping and there could be that scam wick down and, you didn't have stop loss in and you wake up, the price is the same, but you were liquidated and you're like, what the hell happened? So I think you got to be very careful when you're using leverage. Otherwise, it's just gambling, right? And I want to say like Rollbit. Doesn't like Rollbit allow you to do like 1000x leverage? So then you got people just kind of like throwing darts at the board, like this. Sometimes they hit, most times they don't, and it's not really doing any technical analysis or anything like that. It's just pure gambling.
Yeah, I mean, it's badass when people do it and like it works and there's just like some awesome trades. And like, especially if you're comfortable saying, okay, this is my bankroll and I'm going to lose a few times, but I definitely feel bad for the people who saw a favorite influencer saying, well, that's it, the bottom's in, and then put like more money they're able to lose into 100x leverage, and then it's just all gone. Like there's no way to even recoup that. There's no cool, if I wait a few weeks it'll come back. It's just like, nope, you're out. So definitely careful with trading perps and futures. Never NFA, but feel free to shoot me a DM or anything. Maybe I'll do a video field report at some point. Once again, just recapping the perps trading strategy. But it's been fun, so definitely hope some people will check that out.
Yeah, I mean, agree with 100% you said there. Like, if you know what you're doing and you're taking a shot and you're willing to go to zero, that's one thing. But if you don't have a lot and you're doing that, like that's not the way to do it.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, I know we were over. I do have one final thing I want to close it to. For anyone listening, I'm putting together, along with Lizard Capital, a guillotine league for fantasy football this year. For those of you who've never played, it's my first time playing as well. But it is basically fantasy football, and the worst scoring team every week, their entire team gets eliminated, and all of their players go up on the waivers. And it's a fob system, basically just an auction. Should be a ton of fun. Lizard Capital's putting it all together, but I joined the league. Poopaloop is in there. There are 7 slots open. I know this is not related to the show, but I ran it by Poop. So any fantasy football players there, just to celebrate the dissolving of Rainmakers. If you're looking for some DFS to keep you busy in the meantime, shoot me a DM. We'll get you joined in the league. WAF would love to have you in there if that suits your fancy at all. Just kind of messing around, but it should be a really good time. It's a pretty interesting format.
Dude, I never played that format before. It sounds really cool. Count me in.
Dude, let's go. Yeah, that's going to be fun. But yeah, anyone who's interested, shoot me a DM. But yeah, other than that, wow, if anything top of mind, any other parting thoughts for our audience this week?
Yeah, I got nothing else additional for this week. I think we kind of covered everything, and we'll just be watching the weekly chop heading into the final weeks of summer. I want to say, even though summer officially ends like September 20th or 21st, like the real official end is Labor Day weekend. So I do expect to see better price action come September than what we see now. So the chop for now, I think we get up to like 63 by the end of next week, but then we could go back down, and then there'll be like that lull before Labor Day weekend. And then I think once we hit that Tuesday coming back, I feel like everyone will be back from vacation. People will be like really in tune with the market. We get a lot closer to the elections, right? That's going to kind of heat up. I think we got Donald Trump like with Elon Musk tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on X Spaces. Like that should be interesting. So just looking ahead to see, for the rest of the summer, and then, to enjoy the summer, and then we'll have, the real fun will begin post Labor Day.
I love that, Laugh. That's an awesome shout. Yeah, definitely looking forward to seeing what's going to come out of the Trump Elon speech there, see if there might be any bullish sentiment. But yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think post summer, we should get a lot of action. And actually, a date to add on the calendar, August 28th is NVIDIA earnings. So I've seen a lot of sentiment that they're not going to beat earnings, but that's just, speculation on orders slowing down. So if NVIDIA can come out and shatter earnings, I know Nancy Pelosi recently bought more NVIDIA. So if it comes out that they're crushing it, that could just light a huge fuse for the entire market. I know they're, just a big market leader these days. So definitely one to mark there. August 28th will be very exciting to see what happens.
Dude, that's a very bullish day. That's my birthday. That's going to be huge gains for NVIDIA. I'm calling it right now.
Oh, dude, it has to on your birthday, man. Oh, heck yeah. All right. Well, we're going to have a little Boss Dog celebration episode for that one in particular. But until then, man, as always, a pleasure hosting the show with you. Thanks for joining today. As always, audience, love to have you guys in here. Feel free to shoot us any questions during the episodes. We're always here to help. But WAF, appreciate the alpha as always, dog, and I hope you have a great rest of your week.
Same here, Ross. Always been a pleasure. Always will be a pleasure. And we'll talk next week.
Sounds good, bro. I will see you then. Peace, everybody.
Later.